The average fast food drive-thru in America is currently a battleground. But one state has quietly been chosen as the ultimate proving ground for a highly calculated, high-stakes expansion strategy: Ohio. While household names are shutting down legacy locations across the country, corporate giant Chick-fil-A is doing the exact opposite. They are dumping millions of dollars into places like Alliance, North Canton, and Groveport. These are Rust Belt towns and suburban enclaves with slow-growing populations. On a standard corporate spreadsheet, this aggressive capital deployment makes very little sense. Yet, Chick-fil-A is moving forward with a massive plan to build up to 30 new locations across the Buckeye State by 2027, including 9 highly contested sites in Northeast Ohio alone. This is not a casual corporate expansion. It is a hostile takeover of the suburban dining dollar. It is a multi-million-dollar proxy war played out in concrete drive-through lanes and municipal zoning meetings. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the sheer economic weight of what is happening. The fast food industry is currently facing a silent crisis. Rising labor costs, skyrocketing construction overhead, and a consumer base that is increasingly hostile to $12 value meals have forced most national brands into a defensive crouch. Yet, Chick-fil-A is actively accelerating, using Ohio as their primary battering ram. Here is the paradox that should keep every local restaurant owner awake at night. Chick-fil-A is not like other chains. A single location of this brand generates over $8 million in annual revenue. That is more than double the average McDonald's, and nearly quadruple what an average Subway pulls in. When Chick-fil-A drops a new, hyper-efficient double drive-thru into a mid-sized Ohio town, they do not just compete with local diners and smaller regional chains, they completely alter the local economic ecosystem. They siphon off the limited pool of part-time labor by offering wages that local mom-and-pop shops cannot possibly match. They permanently distort local traffic patterns, creating physical gridlock on state routes that local governments are forced to fix using taxpayer dollars. But why Ohio? And why now? The answer lies in a hidden geographic and demographic reality. Ohio is the holy grail of fast food testing because it represents the exact midpoint of American consumer behavior. If you can conquer Ohio, you have a blueprint for dominating the rest of the American heartland. But this sudden rush of chicken-centric expansion is hitting a wall of unexpected resistance. In college towns like Athens, local independent operators are publicly sounding the alarm, warning that the arrival of massive corporate-backed entities will permanently erase the unique character of their communities. Meanwhile, city councils in suburban Cleveland are finding themselves locked in bitter disputes with corporate lawyers over drive-through lane lengths, noise ordinances, and the chaotic traffic spills that have become synonymous with the brand's success. The massive expansion plan is a high-wire act. If Chick-fil-A succeeds in embedding 30 new high-volume units into the fabric of Ohio's suburban landscape, they will have effectively monopolized the mid-tier quick-service market in the region, starvation rationing their competitors out of existence. But if they overbuild, they risk doing something the brand has historically managed to avoid, diluting their own hyper-exclusive brand equity and sparking a localized civil war among their own owner-operators, who are suddenly forced to compete with another red-roofed drive-through just 5 miles down the interstate. We pulled the zoning applications, the traffic studies, and the localized employment data that corporate public relations departments tried to gloss over with generic press releases about Midwestern hospitality. What we uncovered is a high-risk, high-reward land grab that is transforming Ohio's commercial corridors. There is a hidden underlying motive behind this specific geographic push, one that involves a massive shift in supply chain logistics and a direct, calculated attack on their fastest-growing rivals. The true consequence of this expansion goes far deeper than a few new drive-through lanes in North Canton and Alliance. It is a story of corporate expansion, localized economic displacement, and a quiet war for the very soul of suburban American dining. And the endgame of this strategy will change the way you eat, work, and drive, no matter where you live. The aggressive push of Chick-fil-A into Ohio, particularly with the major fall openings at 2381 State Street in Alliance and near Stratavon Drive in North Canton, is not an overnight whim. It is the logical culmination of a decades-long escape from a structural trap that has slowly strangled almost every other legacy fast food brand in the United States. To understand why Ohio is currently ground zero for this high-stakes geographic expansion, you have to look at how Chick-fil-A systematically insulated itself from the Wall Street debt cycles that destroyed competitors like Red Lobster and TGI Fridays. The story begins in 1946 inside a tiny 24-hour diner called the Dwarf Grill, located in Hatfield, Georgia. YouTube Besho 1, its founder, S. Truett Cathy, did not build his empire on aggressive expansion. In fact, for the first few decades, the company was trapped inside a very specific, low-yield real estate format, the suburban shopping mall. In 1967, Cathy opened his first licensed Chick-fil-A in Atlanta's Greenbrier Mall. For the next 20 years, the brand was tethered to the rise and eventual stagnation of enclosed shopping centers. Mall locations meant limited operating hours, heavy reliance on foot traffic, and high common area maintenance fees paid to mall developers. By the late 1980s, the company realized that malls were a geographic dead end. The real money and the real volume was out on the highway corridors. Wikipedia, the transition to standalone, drive-through centric locations in the 1990s changed the entire financial playbook of the quick service industry. While competitors took on massive leverage to rapidly buy up expensive real estate, Chick-fil-A engineered a highly restrictive, incredibly lucrative franchise model that remains completely unique. Unlike McDonald's, where a prospective franchisee needs over $1 million in liquid capital to open a store, Chick-fil-A only charges a flat $10,000 franchise fee, on paper. It looks like the ultimate democratic business opportunity. In reality, it is a masterclass in corporate control and risk mitigation. Chick-fil-A buys the land, constructs the building, and purchases all necessary equipment using its own corporate capital. The operator owns absolutely nothing. They have no equity in the business. They cannot sell the franchise, and they cannot pass it on to their children. In exchange for this low-cost entry, Chick-fil-A takes a staggering 15% of gross sales plus 50% of all net profits remaining. This is the highest take rate in the franchise industry. This model created an enormous war chest of cash, completely free from the demands of public shareholders or private equity debt loads. It allowed the company to play a long, patient real estate game. This brings us directly to the geographic trap of Ohio's suburban corridors. For decades, Northeast Ohio's economy was defined by industrial manufacturing, heavy machinery, and steel. Cities like Alliance and Canton were built around physical plants and factories. When those industries consolidated or migrated, they left behind a highly dense network of suburban roadways, high-traffic state routes, and a workforce that had to transition from factory floors to the service economy. State Street in Alliance and North Main Street in North Canton are prime examples of this physical transition. These corridors are classic American strode environments, half street, half road, designed to move thousands of vehicles a day past tightly packed retail parcels. They are highly efficient at moving cars, but they are incredibly volatile when a high-velocity business is introduced to the mix, when a brand like Chick-fil-A targets these specific locations. They are exploiting a highly calculated geographical vulnerability. They search for mid-sized cities where the local regulatory environment is eager for investment and job creation. The promise of 90 to 100 new jobs per location, even if many are part-time, entry-level positions paying between $12 and $16 an hour, is often enough to convince local planning commissions to fast-track zoning approvals. Indeed, however, local zoning boards in towns like North Canton and Alliance historically operated on planning models designed for the retail volumes of the 1990s. They did not anticipate the modern double drive-through layout, which operates more like an industrial assembly line than a traditional restaurant. A standard municipal code might require 20 to 30 parking spaces and a drive-through lane that can hold 8 to 10 cars before spilling onto the main thoroughfare. But Chick-fil-A's operational model requires a continuous high-volume pipeline. At peak hours, a single location can process upwards of 150 cars per hour through its dual-lane setups. When that volume hits a parcel on State Street in Alliance that was originally designed for a low-turnover retail business, the physical system breaks. The queue of cars quickly backs up, blocking access to neighboring local businesses, clogging turn lanes, and forcing local police departments to manage traffic flow during the lunch and dinner rushes. This is the geographic trap. Local municipalities bear the long-term infrastructure and public safety costs of this gridlock, while the corporate entity in Atlanta and the local operator reap the record-breaking financial rewards. The expansion of up to 30 new locations across Ohio by 2027 is a highly aggressive deployment of this exact strategy. YouTube, by targeting Northeast Ohio, a region with a highly integrated network of mid-sized suburbs, Chick-fil-A is systematically building a physical barrier against its rising competitors, particularly rapidly expanding chicken brands and legacy players who are struggling to update their outdated drive-through footprints. This is a cold, calculated land grab. The company is using its massive self-funded cash reserves to lock down the most valuable corner parcels on Ohio's high-traffic state routes before anyone else can secure them. It is a game of geographic chess where the board is made of concrete, and the prize is the total dominance of the regional dining dollar. The rapid deployment of Chick-fil-A across Ohio is not just an expansion of a fast food brand. It is an industrial redesign of suburban traffic networks that has triggered a silent, localized war between municipal planners and corporate developers. This conflict is driven by a fundamental structural mismatch. While local zoning codes are built on traditional retail assumptions, Chick-fil-A's drive-through only or drive-through heavy footprints operate as high-velocity logistics centers. The consequences of this operational model are visible in municipal boardrooms across the state. In Summit County's city of Greene, just north of Canton, city planners recently had to push back on a Chick-fil-A plat dedication along Arlington Road. The core issue was vehicle stacking. City staff and planning committee members raised alarms that the short queue distance would inevitably cause vehicles to back up into the high traffic lanes of Arlington Road, creating a safety hazard. To resolve the bottleneck, the developer proposed a right-of-way dedication to construct an additional lane and adjust signal timing, essentially shifting the cost of the restaurant's operational volume onto public infrastructure. Citizen Portal is show 1. This pattern of corporate offloading is repeated across the state. In Cincinnati, a proposed Chick-fil-A development at East McMillan Street and Highland Avenue required a special planned development designation because the standard zoning district did not permit drive-through services. Local planners recommended a zone change that would require the building to be placed at the corner along the sidewalk to maintain a pedestrian-friendly environment. The corporate real estate team flatly rejected these design modifications, stating they would disrupt the restaurant's optimal double drive-through traffic flow. The message from corporate headquarters was clear. Municipal design standards must bend to accommodate the mechanical efficiency of the drive-through, not the other way around. Cincinnati.gov, Issue 1. The reality on the ground in Alliance and North Canton reveals the friction generated by this physical expansion. On West State Street in Alliance, a commercial corridor already struggling with traffic management, the introduction of a new double-lane drive-through threatens to overwhelm local access points. In North Canton, where the brand operates on Main Street and Dressler Road, the sheer volume of vehicles trying to enter these sites has historically created gridlock during the lunch and dinner rushes. Traffic engineers call this phenomenon externalized costs. A private business captures the maximum possible profit from a small physical footprint, while the public grid absorbs the negative externalities in the form of congested streets, delayed transit, and increased traffic accidents. An independent audit of high-volume fast food drive-thrus across 20 states found dozens of instances where city authorities, police departments, and neighboring businesses had to intervene or file lawsuits due to persistent traffic spillover. The Charlotte Ledger in some states, the traffic gridlock has become so severe that cities have ordered existing Chick-fil-A locations to be demolished and rebuilt with larger, drive-through-only footprints to pull the vehicle queue off public streets. But in Ohio, the current strategy is not to rebuild, but to oversaturate. Corporate planners use a tactic known as relief locations. Rather than fixing the traffic design of a highly congested store, they build a second, or even third, location within a 5-mile radius. The explicit goal is to split the customer volume and relieve pressure on the original site. Reddit, however, this relief strategy creates a secondary economic trap for existing local businesses. When a new Chick-fil-A opens in a mid-sized town like Alliance, it immediately destabilizes the local labor market. The brand relies on a massive pool of part-time workers, often recruiting high school and college students to run their high-intensity, multi-lane systems. Because of their high volume and massive margins, corporate-funded locations can afford to offer starting wages between $11 and $16 an hour, alongside promises of college scholarships. For a local, independent diner or a smaller regional chain operating on razor-thin margins, matching these wages is economically impossible. The result is a slow-motion drain of the local hospitality workforce. Independent restaurants are forced to cut their operating hours, reduce service, or shut down entirely because they cannot find staff. This is the shadow side of the 90 new jobs promised by corporate press releases. It is not job creation, it is labor displacement that systematically favors high-volume corporate entities over local capital at the same time. Neighboring commercial property owners are finding themselves in direct conflict with these high-volume operations. In multiple zoning disputes across Ohio, adjacent businesses have filed complaints and legal challenges, arguing that the constant queue of idling cars blocks their own customer parking, ruins visibility, and restricts access to their storefronts. A customer trying to access a local pharmacy, dry cleaner, or family-owned hardware store will simply drive past if the entrance is blocked by a line of 30 cars waiting for chicken sandwiches. The Charlotte Ledger this creates an economic dead zone immediately surrounding the high-volume parcel. While Chick-fil-A extracts maximum value from its 1-acre site, the surrounding real estate suffers a decline in customer access and utility. This is the reality of the fast food monoculture. It is an economic model designed to strip-mine local retail corridors, utilizing public roads as free staging areas for private commercial transactions, while leaving local municipalities to foot the bill for the physical and regulatory cleanup.